like Hugo Ekitike as well. But is summer 2026 shaping up to be even more frustrating for them? Anthony Gordon is gone, Sandro Tonali is gone, and it looks like Bruno is going to leave too. To make matters worse, Yohan Manzami snubbed them to join Aston Villa, and James Trafford is off to Leeds. Here's the Chronicles' Lee Ryder. He joined us a little earlier to discuss the club's activity this summer. Oh, we're going to hear from Lee Ryder in just a minute, but let's welcome now Jack Cunningham to the show. Our resident Geordie, of course. Jack, you're big on Inside Newcastle United. Here you are to talk about Newcastle United. How bad has this summer been so far for your Magpies?
It's been strange, I think.
Strange rather than bad?
Strange, I think, because I was expecting Tonali and Gordon to go. I think most people sort of were.
And you got a few quid for them?
I got a lot of money for them. I don't think anyone was expecting to make, 180 million from them if you add in all the add-ons. So, yeah, but then I think that this Bruno Guimarães stuff is probably make or break for the summer. Simply because Newcastle are so bad without him in the team. So bad without him in the team. You go back to last season when he got injured against Spurs away, we won 2 games without him in the side. And I think overall, when he's not been in the Premier League team, we've won 5 games. And that's since he joined and got into the 11. So it's Bruno or bust.
Yeah, I mean, the facts speak for themselves. As you were saying, that CJ has got his fingers
CJ has got his fingers crossed.
Yeah,
he has.
I feel a little bit of tension, a tug of war with Mr. Guimarães in the middle of it.
I'm a big fan of CJ, but I won't be able to speak to him again if Bruno goes to Arsenal. I think, and a lot of Newcastle fans also in the view of if he was to leave, would be kind of fine with him going to a European team, but it'd be quite painful seeing him every week for Arsenal because we know how good he is. I think if Arsenal get him, they win the Premier League again comfortably.
You think that's as simple as that?
And I think they win the Champions League.
Do me this solid then, Jack, man.
Hang on,
pack your bags, Bruno.
So saying win the Premier League, if I'm, I think that's a shout. It's a huge shout, but fair.
Yeah.
Champions League as well.
I think he's that good. And I think you would have a midfield of him and Rice.
They need to sign Fabian Ruiz if they want to win the Champions League. We know that he's the cheat code.
He's been on kryptonite, to be fair.
His record for Spain is he's seen it 50 games, not lost a single game, which is ridiculous.
But what do you think of that then, CJ? I mean, you've been touted if Arsenal get Bruno Guimarães over the line,
I think he's that
Premier
good.
League and Champions League.
We've got the best midfield pivot in the Premier League, potentially world football, give or take, if it's not PSG, if we do get Bruno at the football club. He's 28, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. If I'm completely honest, the dream is free, the hustle is sold separately. I don't think we get Bruno Guimarães, but I would love it.
You don't think Arsenal are going to get him?
No, because again, for a variety of reasons, he's Newcastle captain. I know he's Brazilian, but he might as well be Geordie. He's not going to kick up a fuss. I know the means justify the ends. Gordon, the way Gordon left is very different to how Tonali left, very different to how Isak left. I don't think Bruno's going to burn any bridges. If I'm Eddie Howe, I'm not saying Bruno can't leave, but I'm saying just we'll let you go for even cheaper next year. You can see how dislodged this team's been. You can see how difficult the transfer market is. You can see key players have left. Yeah, please just allow us. As an Arsenal fan, though, I do remember the early Emirates era when a number of star players were leaving, and Thierry Henry was the last through the door. Now, I'm not comparing Bruno to that, but it is a conflicting one where I'm sure it's his brain and his heart pulling and tugging between the two. He wants to stay at Newcastle, but there is an opportunity potentially of a lifetime if he was to sign for us. And I always say this, I'm not criticising anything from Newcastle, it's just the belly of the beast. You could stay at Newcastle and you could get to 32 years of age. You might want a 2-year deal from Newcastle, and just purely from a business point of view, they might only offer you one. They're going to shake your hand, give you a testimonial, and life goes on. Footballers should always do what they need to do. I just don't think we're going to hit the price tag that Newcastle want. We're talking about valuation. There's been a lot of sniffing and talking and agents and this and that. We've bidded 70 million. Maybe that's to open conversations. That's probably disrespectful to Newcastle.
Yeah,
they're going to tell you where to shove it. So what is your absolute maximum price point on Bruno Guimarães? For me, it's 85 million. I mean, if they're not going to do it for that, forget it.
I mean, I've just seen two, obviously, much younger midfielders go for British record transfer fees. Of course, Newcastle will be thinking, come on, lads. I mean, CJ saying there that Bruno is Newcastle United through and through, might as well be Geordie, blah 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 blah, and also saying that Eddie Howe should say give us another year or whatever. we'll remember what happened last summer with Alexander Isak. Are you worried as a Newcastle fan that something like that happens? Because as CJ said, Bruno Guimarães is 28 years old.
Yeah.
He has the chance to join the Premier League champions. And you've just said, and I would agree with you definitely on the Premier League front, that they win the Premier League. I think that the favourites to do it. He goes in there. My goodness, it's a huge step to retaining that title. You've mentioned what you said about the Champions League. Are we going to see a proper saga here? A transfer saga go on and on and on with maybe Bruno Guimarães doing an Alexander Isak and saying, I'm not going to play.
So he's due back in pre-season soon. Maybe next week or halfway through next week. I think that's the key moment. If he doesn't turn up on that first day,
then it's done.
Then I think Newcastle have got a very, very difficult decision to make. If he didn't turn up on the first day, that would... forget about him being a legend of the club. I remember when we won the Carabao Cup and he said how he wanted to put his name in the club's history. Well, I'll be scratching that name off if you do that. Because Isak, as much as I felt like he enjoyed his time at Newcastle, he never gave off this opinion that he was a Geordie. He was just there doing his job. He enjoyed the adulation of the fans, but there was never anything like more than that. Bruno's gone way, way beyond that with his connection with the fan base, the way he brings up his kids as Geordies as well, always has them in Newcastle shirts and stuff. So if then for you to not turn up to training, refuse to play pre-season games as the captain of the club, when we've already lost Tonali, already scored and some massive players leaving, I think his legacy then is burned, finished. He'd be done.
So the obvious question off the back of this, obviously that's not happened, and we're projecting what may happen.
Yeah.
If indeed he does turn up and he conducts himself in a certain way, professional manner, and then Arsenal come in, they stump up the cash, whatever that is, 75, 85, whatever million, and Bruno Guimarães turns around and goes, "Look, lads, it's been great, but I can't turn this down." How then would you feel about that as a Newcastle United fan?
Yeah, it's a bit different, but I'm saying don't sell him.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, he's missed his chance. If he wanted to go, let us know before Tonali and Gordon. You can't... I don't understand how, as Newcastle, can continue to build as a football club and sell the club to other players if you watch Tonali, Gordon, Isak, Bruno all leave in the space of a year. If then I'm Lewis Hall, I'm sitting there going, what's going on here? I want out as well, even though Lewis Hall's a Newcastle fan. He's very young, he's got a big career ahead of him. I'll be thinking, what's going on here? And I think as other players want to come in, and you'll be also thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Why would I want to go to this club? So I think it's a point now where we agree a deal. One more year, you'll be 29 next summer. He's never had legs anyway, so he hasn't got legs to lose. So that's fine. One more year, and then you get a pick of any club you want. We'll do it for a reduced fee. It gives Newcastle a year to find a replacement.
Yep.
I think it'll hold our season together because we've just signed a load of young players. I think Bruno there will hold the season together. I think we can still have a good year, and I think it can be a lot more amicable. I'm sure maybe the Arsenal might not come in for him, but I'm sure another big club would come in for him as well, and he'd still get that move. I think that's the better way to go about it at this point, almost from principle point of view, and the way Newcastle have viewed going forward. I think it's just got to be a no. Unless it's genuinely like 120 million or something ridiculous like that, but it's not going to be.
Right.
So
see what I mean about the valuation?
So 120 million there.
You see what I mean about the valuation? So by all means, test the waters, but just keep it moving. You could argue, as it's crazy to say, because he is 29 and 28 turning 29. If it wasn't Bruno, these conversations would hold weight, but you could argue he's more valuable to Newcastle than the 75, 80, 85 million, whatever you lot would get for him from this pure summer. So I'm conflicted. On one hand, obviously, I would love for him to burn bridges and just get this move done. But then I also don't
then
want
we burn bridges
exactly.
then.
No, but then that's just my fan cap. I almost don't want him to do that. Your contract, beyond the obvious, you're contracted to Newcastle. It's in your best interest to train and perform and play in pre-season like nothing's happened, because then you would come to my club, assuming all the dominoes fall, in the best possible state.
Yeah.
These things can get ugly. What I would say to Bruno is, the means justify the end. Like, do what your heart is telling you, because at the end of the day, these Newcastle fans, they'll love plenty of footballers before you and after you. Just come to North London.
I was going to say a CJ for being called the deluded Gooner is actually the most sensible, and then he said that at the end. I was like, oh no, that's
do you know how good he is at football?
Look,
it's ridiculous.
I'm a Fulham fan. I'm further down the food chain than Newcastle United. I'm afraid this is how it works. All right, we can now hear from the Chronicles' Lee Ryder. He joined us a little earlier to discuss Newcastle's activity this summer.
There are concerns, but Newcastle, with the financial situation, they pretty much had to sell Anthony Gordon. They didn't want to sell Tonali, but 100 million is an incredible offer for a player who didn't have a great season last year, and that money's been reinvested. They have signed 4 players in 40 days. So I'm kind of erring on the side of positivity. The window's not quite shut just yet. I'll judge it when it is shut. The Bruno thing, yes, it is a big concern, but we don't know what the CEO and the new sporting director, Ross Wilson and David Hopkinson, we don't know how tough they're going to be. They were very tough with Tonali, by the way, because Tottenham didn't want to pay 100 million, and Newcastle just said, we'll leave the room if you don't pay what we want. So I think Arsenal, if they're thinking about getting a knockdown offer for Bruno, who is the club captain, I think they may have to think again.
They may have to think again, Jack. They may have to think again. Newcastle have made a few signings this summer. Alaji Bamba from Monaco's been recently confirmed. I mean, are there any signings that, obviously, maybe not ones that you would want, some bigger star quality, but any of the ones that have happened that excite you?
So I think we've changed entire the way we're going about the transfer window. Last summer we tried to go for Premier League test proven, and Visser and Alanga, as an example, have not worked out whatsoever. Look, hopefully they're going to be better this season, but they haven't worked out. And Ross Wilson has come in and essentially said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to sign young European talents. I think with the idea of bringing them in, I don't expect many of them to be there for that long. I'm going to enjoy them for while they're there. I'm sure we'll make them good players.
Emulate Borussia Dortmund.
I think so.
He didn't want to say, because he was asked about Brentford and Brighton, and he said no, because Borussia Dortmund still challenged for honours.
Yes,
and that was the key.
And I think that is the key thing. I think it's not been about a Brighton and a Bournemouth or a Brentford. It's about being on that other level where you can still be in for not the Premier League or Champions League, but the FA Cup, the Europa League, the Conference League. You can still do that.
It's a stepping stone or a destination.
Exactly. It's more rather than maybe what we all thought it was going to be with the takeover, where all these players come, they stay for their whole careers. The way the rules are, it's just not going to be like that. So we've got to adapt. I didn't know a lot about the players. I can't sit here and lie and say and all this. But I think from what I've seen and scouting reports and stuff on these players, because obviously I'm going to do research once we've signed them, I am excited. It's more the sense of the unknown, and Newcastle became so predictable last season. I mean, we won 3 points from losing positions. We went behind and it was all right, I may as well turn it off. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, we're not getting anything. I just want to say something different. So with Bamba's finally a defensive midfielder. We haven't had a defensive midfielder for years. Always the problem with Eddie Howe.
It was Arsenal's routine.
And then when we got a centre defensive, we didn't have a striker.
Exactly. Yeah. So because Eddie Howe's thing's always the flat midfield three, and it got exposed all the time. So Bamba's an actual defensive midfielder. Torre is like a touchline winger instead of Gordon, who's going to be cutting inside. Yeah, Yawan, young goalkeeper who. Well, I mean, he's got to be better than Nick Pope. But yeah. And then Stewart from Ajax, 18-year-olds, really seems like a really technically gifted midfielder. So I think there's elements to be positive about, of course. I think a lot of it really depends on Bruno staying or going. I think that kind of makes or breaks the transfer window for Newcastle.
I sniff a saga.
Yeah.
That's what I sniffed.
It won't be a saga, man. We're going to move on very quickly. And you know what, just a quick word on what Jack said, just as an outsider looking in, I actually think Newcastle fans might not agree with this because they want to be competitive. They've had Champions League nights, but it probably makes sense to do that approach. Guimaraes was at Lyon, no one was screaming his name. No one was convinced on Gordon when he was at Everton. Isaac, I remember when people thought,
when we signed him, he scored 6 goals that season for La Liga, and we spent 60 million on him. Everyone was like, what?
And look at what they've gone on to do. That's what we was talking about earlier when I said, can we, in relation to Arsenal, find these guys before they emerge?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Botman as well.
There we go. Jack, a pleasure.
Pleasure.
You on the show. Thank you very much for that. You're listening to The Social on talkSPORT 2. Next up, we'll get an update from the Commonwealth Games.